Hey guys, so today I am doing another behind the song story. Today I'm actually going to touch on a song by Nirvana, and the song is called Polly. It's a pretty popular song. It was released on the Nevermind album, but contrary to popular belief, it is not about the murder of Polly Klaas, who was unfortunately killed in 1993. This song was actually written during the Bleach era of Nirvana, which means it would have been written in about 1988 or 89. But it wasn't released on the Bleach album because the acoustic setup of the song was it didn't fit in with the rest of the album. So they held off on it until Nevermind. The song was actually originally named Hitchhiker, and you'll understand why once I tell you the story behind it. It was also changed to Cracker, but it ended up being called Polly. No one is exactly sure why it was named Polly. I haven't been able to find any real information on it. It may have just been a name that Kurt thought up for it, or it may just be a simple allusion to the Polly Wants a Cracker lyric in the song. But much like the Jeremy Wade Dell story, this was an article that the writer Kurt Cobain saw in a newspaper one morning. This was in June of 1987. So the perpetrator of this crime behind the story is a man by the name of Gerald Friend. Gerald Friend was born in 1938, and he is a serial rapist and kidnapper from Lakewood, Washington. Now, this story does involve a kid, not a young child, but a teenager. And because it involves a minor, the name of the victim is not public knowledge. It shouldn't be public knowledge, so I don't have that information, and I'm not going to go digging for it because this happened to a kid, and that should completely, any victim really should be, it should be their story to tell when something terrible like this happens. But especially when it's a kid that isn't even old enough to comprehend what happened, let alone have to deal with a lifetime of people going after them, wanting to ask about something that happened to them at a very young age, is just not okay. So that name is being held privately from the public, and all I know are the basic details of the case. But it's still an interesting story to know what's behind this song. So in 1987, a 14-year-old girl went missing after a rock concert. She left the concert and she accepted a ride home from Gerald Friend, who was 49 years old at the time. And instead of getting her home safe, he repeatedly raped and tortured her. Fortunately, after this happened, he stopped at a gas station, and she was brave enough to jump out of his truck and run for it, and she got away. Now, a couple days later, he was stopped by some police for a traffic violation, and they recognized him from the girl's description and the truck and everything like that. So luckily they called it in, they arrested him, and in August of that year, he was convicted of first-degree kidnapping and rape. A lot of deputies couldn't believe that he was even free at the time, because the messed up thing is, he had been previously convicted of rape and torture in 1960, and he was sentenced to 75 years in prison. However, after serving 20 years and escaping twice, they let him out on parole. Like, why he would get let out after trying to escape a couple times and after serving for a violent crime. He's not serving for like drug charges or, something like that where it's still a felony, but it's not violent. And they let him out. Now, oddly enough, police actually suspected Gerald Friend of being a suspect in the Green River Killer case. Now, he did not murder those people. I don't know that he was involved in those crimes at all, but Gary Ridgway has been convicted of those crimes. He's still pretty famous for being one of the main suspects in that case. Nirvana actually got a lot of backlash for releasing this song. Basically, people felt that they took a tragedy and made it into something pop culture, as if a horror didn't really happen behind the story, which it did. Now, I think maybe the more of the atmosphere in the early 90s was to stay hush-hush about things. A lot of famous musicians came out with songs that talked about things nobody had really talked about before, like For example, Aerosmith, Janie's Got a Gun was about dealing with sexual abuse from her father, and that was criticized. That was very controversial at its time. So to really bring awareness to this subject, it wasn't that they brought levity to it, it was that they really brought awareness and said, this is something that happened. This is something that happens when, unfortunately, with hitchhiking, with young girls, with young boys too. And, you know, they wrote a song about it and brought awareness to it. Apparently, part of the criticism that they got was that they said Kurt got a lot of the details wrong in the story, but Kurt wrote the song from a different perspective. He didn't write it from a factual perspective. He wrote it from what he imagined Gerald Friend's perspective to be while he was committing this crime. Now, a lot of people asked, why on earth would you want to put yourself in his state of mind? Why would you want to see it from this rapist's point of view? But I think that a lot of people who are into true crime understand the curiosity behind that, in that you can't fathom or imagine why someone would want to commit these crimes. So it's sort of like, what's going through your mind? What made you think that? Or what were your intentions behind it? Or what led to it? It's interesting. It's not condoning it. It's not thinking, oh, I could think that way. It's just, it's from a psychology point of view, it's interesting. Kurt's response to it was that he liked to write about other people and events because his own life was boring. So I think it was just, it was interesting to him. I think the psychology of it was probably interesting to him, as it is with a lot of people. Luckily, Gerald Friend is still behind bars, and that probably won't be changing because he is serving his original sentence out. They put him back in prison and said that he had to finish the remaining 55 years that he didn't complete of the original 75-year sentence. And he was sentenced again for this crime for another 75 years. So he had to serve 2 consecutive 75-year terms with no chance of parole at this time. So he will probably die in prison with these crimes, and who knows, there was a 30-year gap, almost a 30-year gap between the 2 crimes. He could have committed more when he was out, because he would have gotten out probably around 1980 from the 1960 sentence, and that's 7 years of him being free. So who knows if he committed any other similar crimes that weren't reported. Sadly, that is something that happens. But again, luckily, Gerald Friend is in prison and he's not getting out anytime soon. The state of Washington was actually sued for prematurely paroling him back in 1980. But I think it's interesting that the state was held liable for it, basically. So that is the story behind the Nirvana song Polly. I will put the lyrics below and all of my sources as well. Thank you so much for everybody's comments and likes and all my new subscribers from my other videos. I have to give a shout out to Famous Seamus 105 for being my 100th subscriber, because that cracked me up. So now I'm like a little over 100 and I'm pumped. So I really like that you guys are enjoying these videos. If you have any requests, please put them below and I will definitely look into them. I had a request from somebody that I asked them for more details, so I'm waiting to see about that. It had to do with an LA Guns song in the 80s. I had Googled for hours yesterday, but with the limited information that I had, I couldn't really find anything. So if you have a request, please comment below. Please like this video. Please hit the thumbs up if you liked this video, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.